Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we are going to be looking at December's exceptional story, the Icarian Cup. But before I jump in there, let's take a moment to address this big box that is at the bottom of the screen. Failbetter recently announced, and by recently I mean yesterday from the recording of this video, that they are producing a brand new game that is a visual novel, a romantic visual novel no less, that is being kickstarted soon. I'll put a link in the description down below if you want to check it out. It's not actually up for kickstarting yet. I think you can add it to your wish list, but there is a trailer. Please go check it out. Most of you probably already knew this was happening, but for the people who didn't, go have a look. It looks like it could be quite exciting. But let me get rid of that, and without further ado, let's get into the story. The Icarian Cup to return, proclaims the Gazette's front page. They're bringing back the Icarian Cup, shout urchins on street corners, clutching bundles of newspapers in ink-stained hands. The news broke like a storm overnight. Wherever you go, you can't seem to escape the rumours. The Icarian Cup has returned. But what is it? Some sort of sailing race around the Southern Archipelago? With only the best sailors invited to take part? The Gazette says it's been organised by the Admiralty. So we have two choices. We could either proceed to the Wolfstack docks at a leisurely pace. It seems a matter worth investigating, but you're in no rush. Or we can rush to the Wolfstack docks at once. No time to lose. I am going to run. Let's go. You hurry down the street, feet skidding in mud-slick gutters, almost knocking over an anarchist waving a sign that says, "The end is night." As you near Wolfstack Docks, London changes. The hubble-bubble noise of the city eases, replaced by the titanic groans of overburdened iron and relentless lapping of the waves, the occasional solemn echo of a foghorn. The fog that rolls in from the sea, thick and pure and as white as ghosts, mixes with the coal-black grot smog of the factories to ferment a dark grey cloud somehow, more impenetrable than either. Out here, the tang of salt crusts faintly at your lips. Out there, the sea stretches darkly and beckons. The docks are milling with curious bystanders, all of whom seem to have had the same idea as you. Flags are being waved. Someone is blowing a tin whistle. Savvy salesmen have already set up stalls selling sausages and commemorative pins. The sailors and dock workers are gathered in tightly knit groups, muttering darkly to each other and glaring at the surrounding onlookers with suspicion. You drift closer, hoping to overhear something of interest. "Cursed by salt and storm," says one of the sailors, sipping grimly at her flask. "Shouldn't have brought it back." When she notices you, she glares and stops speaking. So we can either buy a round at the blind's helmsman. The sailors seem suspicious of outsiders flocking to the docks. They'll need to loosen their tongues before they'll describe their fears about the cup. Or we can trade secrets with the deceased dock watcher, a bandage-swathed tomb colonist who sits overlooking the harbour day after day, watching the world change. She's bound to know the history of the cup. Let's do that. That is much more interesting to talk to the deceased dock watcher. You find her on her customary bench, bundled in a heavy coat. You have to lean close to hear her rattling whispers. When you bring up the Icarian Cup, she nods sagely. For a few years after the fall, the Icarian Cup was the greatest yacht race in London, she murmurs. Only the best were invited to take part. It was cancelled in 1868. People said it was cursed because ships went missing every year. Before you can ask for further details, you notice a crowd gathering. You should go, says the dock's watcher. The Commodore is due to deliver a speech. The message spreads in a ripple of whispers. The Commodore is giving a speech. Nobody knows quite who the Commodore is, but he must be important if he's giving a speech. In dribs and drabs, the crowd drifts towards the Admiralty shipyards. The Commodore is waiting atop some repurposed scaffolding, flanked by a squadron of flint-faced Marines. "Marvellous to see you all out here today," says the Commodore, good-naturedly, squinting down at the crowd. "It is my singular honour to announce that with the support of the Admiralty, the Icarian Cup will be raced once more." We can cast our eyes to the crowd. Who else is in attendance? The Commodore launches into a rambling litany of patriotic platitudes devoid of nutritional content. Only scattered words make an impression. Pride, humble duty, Her Majesty, strength, bright future. You take advantage of the lull to glance around. Many sailors have congregated here, drawn in despite their misgivings. You find your gaze caught by a flash of dark glass. As you were watching others, someone was watching you. A tall, dark-speckled man in the uniform of an admiral. As you meet his stare, he turns and strides away, quickly lost among the crowd. Wait, is that the dark-speckled admiral from Sunless Seas? Ooh, a crossover! The Commodore sweeps his eyes over his audience, smiling. "The finish line is Port Carnelian," he says. "There, the Governor will be waiting to present the winner with the golden trophy in question, as well as a priceless casket of sapphires. And this time, the Icarian Cup will be invitation only." Gasps of disappointment from the crowd. "We've drawn up a list of those who we judge to be the finest sailors in London. Only they will be permitted to take part." Well, let's listen to the rest of the speech. His dull, patriotic onslaught dissipated the crowd's nervous energy. The atmosphere now is more akin to a lecture hall on a lazy afternoon toward term's end. "The Admiralty is proud to sponsor this new iteration of the Icarian Cup," says the Commodore. "I await, with bated breath, the opportunity to congratulate the winner. Our selected competitors may soon expect an invitation in the post." The Commodore steps down from his makeshift stage and into a waiting carriage. The crowd seems to awaken as though from a long sleep. The sailors return to their work. The rest drift homeward, yawning. Excitement over. You do the same. Let's go back to our house and hope we have a letter. Upon returning to your lodgings, you discover a folded note lying neatly upon your doormat. The message is brief, the handwriting impeccable. The writer describes himself as an admiral who is concerned there may be sinister motives behind the Icarian Cup's resurrection. He makes a dark allusion to rogue elements within the Admiralty. As a result, he cannot confidently address these concerns to his peers. He contacted you specifically because, after all, we have two options here. He saw you in the crowd at the Commodore's speech. He watched the Commodore with skepticism that piqued his interest. His subsequent research into your background indicated that you're demonstrably capable. Or we can spoke to him once at a party. That is going back to a previous exceptional story. Ever since, he's kept tabs on you. You seemed like a useful individual to know. Or I was never a governor at Port Carnelian, I'm afraid. And you have enviable experience with the Z. I don't have either of those, but I am going to go with the party one because that's nice. The note concludes with a polite, if somewhat abrupt, request for a face-to-face meeting. It gives you an address, an office in Mansions Pyre, and a time when all decent folks should be in bed. That's all. There we go, attend a secret meeting with the dark-speckled admiral. I believe the first time I met him, I didn't know who he was because I hadn't played Sunless Seas. Now it's a series on this very channel. I love every second of it, it's brilliant. Before you are permitted up to the Admiral's office, you are inspected by a uniformed Marine, with a face like a disappointed mountain. He orders you to open your eyes wide, peers into the first one and then the other, and finally, satisfied, sends you upstairs. The dark speckled Admiral awaits you behind a vast gulf of a desk. "Please, take a seat," he says mildly. "May I offer you a drink?" A pause, a clinking of glass. "The new sequence is a fad that has overtaken much of the Admiralty," he says, pouring you a generous helping of your preferred beverage. "These are dangerous times. Few of my peers are unaffected. Even I am not wholly free of its influence." He won't explain further, nor condemn the sequence outright, but he professes a special dislike of the Commodore in particular. This new iteration of the Icarian Cup is his brainchild, says the Admiral with distaste. "It is no mere boat race. I want you to help me uncover its true purpose." "I will agree wholeheartedly to help," the dark speckled Admiral. He is a nice fellow. Judging by the single bead of sweat on his brow, the Admiral needs all the help he can get. "I will see you compensated for your time, of course." The Admiral permits himself a small smile. "I have not yet lost access to the coffers." He slides a small bronze key across the desk. "I made a copy of the key to the Commodore's office. I suggest you sneak in and look through his files, and make sure you familiarize yourself with his schedule. The man keeps odd hours in and out of his office throughout the night and day." Sitting across from the Admiral at midnight, you make no comment on the irony. And if you are seen, the Admiral's expression is stone. Don't be seen. Seems fair enough? Let's go and investigate the Commodore. According to the rumour mill, the Commodore arrived in London only recently, after a long spell at some distant port across the sea. Nevertheless, he seems well liked. He has slipped back into the fabric of society without apparent trouble. The dark speckled Admiral recommended that you familiarise yourself with his schedule before attempting to break into his office. We have a lot of options here, don't we? I have to conveniently bump into the Commodore. You'd like to speak to him in person. Perhaps if you happen to bump into him at an official function, this is your only chance to speak to the Commodore in person. After making some inquiries, you discover that the Commodore is a trustee of the Manners Preservation Foundation, a charity dedicated to educating the ignorant and impoverished of London on the proper forms of address when talking to their social betters. In a few days' time, he is due to attend the charity's annual ball, a very exclusive affair, you are given to understand. Fortunately, you know people who know some other people. With a few strings pulled and a wink-wink nudge-nudges, you're able to wrangle yourself an invitation in short order. Good thing I had those favours with society, huh? The charity ball is a glamorous affair. It begins with an impassioned speech from the Foundation's founder, in which she witheringly recounts a time when her new maid addressed her as "your lady." After that, the guests are permitted to mingle. Wine flows like a storm-swollen river. A pianist plays a lively tune. Waiters circle like canapé-wielding vultures, swooping as soon as they spot a lull in conversation. Fortuitously, you spot the Commodore and drift over to his periphery. He proves most accomplished at small talk. I'm not going to tell him that the Admiral is plotting against him. I'm going to side quite heavily with the Admiral, I feel, on this one. Probe him for personal details. Or confront him about the Icarian Cup. Let's probe him for personal details. Yeah, you won't mention the Admiral, but you're still tipping your hand somewhat. It seems like a bad idea to just be like, "I am investigating you. What can you tell me?" Let's probe. You ask about his hobbies, feigning interest in finding common ground. Does he play cards? Croquet, perhaps? but he professes that he is neither a player of games nor a creature of habit. After some further fruitless probing, he stifles a yawn. "London keeps me awake," he admits. "You should see me back at the base in the Grand Geode, bright as a button, spring in my step. But I can't sleep in London. Something in the air, perhaps." This is all you manage to get to him before a Viscountess whisks you away to discuss charitable initiatives in spite. Okay, so the Grand Geode, we know where that is from the series of Sunless Seas as well. So this is definitely the new sequence versus the Admiralty. This is very interesting. Let's discover the latest gossip about the Commodore. His proclivities, his peculiarities, his peccadillos, and his predispositions. According to the rumour mill, the Commodore is as bluff and honest an Admiralty man as could be hoped for. No wife, no children, no vices or paramours. He amuses himself by putting ships in bottles and drinking brandy. He's never in London for long, a week at most, before he heads back to his naval base on the Grand Geode. You're ready to give up when you finally learn something worthwhile. In a salon, from a shawl-ensconced old woman who occasionally stops talking mid-sentence and has to be gently prodded to resume. She claims to be the Commodore's former governess. He was a little terror, but he grew up into such a respectable fellow, she recalls, misty-eyed. It's a shame about his current affliction, she finishes. He barely sleeps, and when he does, he rises from his bed and wanders the streets in his nightgown. He never used to be this troubled by that as a boy. Oh no! He slept like a log. At least this explains why he, has trouble having a schedule when he's awake all the time. Can we discover more gossip? Same thing again? No, same thing again. Okay. Follow the Commodore at a discreet distance. What better way to learn a man's schedule than to accompany him throughout a typical day? Without his knowledge, of course. You rent a room opposite his office and observe him through a looking glass. When he wanders out into the city, you flit between alleyways behind him. His social calendar is certainly busy. In a single day, he pays a visit to his amused lordship and the Bishop of Suffolk. No club is barred to him. When he stops at the Parentheum, they usher him in like an old friend. Isn't this a little strange? Isn't Commodore a relatively low-ranking title as far as senior officers go? He's below a rear admiral, for goodness sake. He sleeps in his office, at his desk, but only intermittently. Sometimes you look away for a moment, assuming he is fast asleep, and when you look back, he's gone. Well, here we go. Time to do some good old breaking and entering. If you're right about the rhythms of the Commodore's daily affairs, you should have a full hour of uninterrupted snooping. The Commodore is an insomniac and a sleepwalker. All it takes is a few drops of sulfuric into his evening brandy, and he's soon wandering the street outside his office in a daze. That should give you enough time. Picking the lock on this door is child's play. The desk drawer is only a trifle trickier. You sort through his files and find a folder with the Admiralty stamp, and another, stranger stamp, that looks like a fire gold semicircle. It's marked Icarian. The plans are obfuscated and euphemistic, using officious language like strategic interception at coordinates 10-12 and the victorious human cargo. In blunter terms, the real winner of the Icarian Cup will never make it, Port Carnelian. They will be intercepted by the Admiralty as they pass the Grand Geode and spirited away for purposes that are not described. The second place finisher and all other competitors will actually reach the finish line. The missing ship will be declared mysteriously lost at Z. The Admiral would certainly be interested in this. You replace the file, leaving no trace of your snooping. Let's return to the Admiral. The Admiral looks across his desk, utterly expressionless. You have the air of someone who's accomplished something. We can tell him the secret of the Icarian Cup. The true winner will be kidnapped as they pass the Grand Geode. The second place finisher will get the prize at Port Carnelian. The Admiral listens with steepled fingers. A single eyebrow raises 1/4 of an inch. In the old days, this would be enough for a court-martial and a city-wide scandal to boot, he says. Unfortunately, we live in less enlightened times, or rather, more enlightened. And that's the trouble. He grimaces, ever so slightly. Settling back in his chair, he lights a pipe. Instead, it seems I must ask another favour of you. This morning, the Commodore sent out Icarian Cup invitations to the best sailors in London. Each invitation takes the form of a golden coin, engraved with the recipient's face and name. I believe they're being referred to as Icarian groats by the Gazette. I need you to find every competitor who's been issued a groat and tell them the truth about what awaits the winner. The Admiral shrugs. If they still compete after that, on their heads be it. He hands you a gleaming gemstone, torn from his cuff. Here, for your help so far. A flawed diamond. There's worse prizes. For finding those in possession of the Icarian groat, every sailor invited to take part in the Icarian Cup has been delivered a particular coin engraved with their name and likeness. Apparently, they have also been asked to keep their invitation secret until the day the race begins. The Admiral has asked you to track down all the groats that have been delivered and warn the sailors about the hidden dangers of the cup. We can chase rumours at the dock. The difficulty isn't getting sailors and dock workers to talk about the cup. The difficulty is separating baseless speculation from truth. Or we can trace letters on their way to the Commodore's office. It's simple enough matter to take a knife to a few postbags and rifle through the contents. That might be the one I'm going for. It's a shame we can't ask the pirate poet or ask Isari, another friend from Sunless Seas. Let's trace letters on the way to the Commodore's office. Sorting through a heap of stolen envelopes, you find a few addressed to the Commodore. Bills, membership dues for various clubs, something written in an unbreakable cipher. Finally, you discover a note of cautious gratitude written by a sailor who was invited to take part in the Icarian Cup. You have a name. Now to investigate it. You discover the name of a sailor invited to compete in the Icarian Cup. What is this name? You have 4 left to warn. So there's 4 people here. The emulous excursionist. Apparently he's the toast of London's high society, the third-born son of some baronet or other. He is a mountain climber, Z-crosser, devil lover, and adventure haver. We have the annotated Z-farer, not a name you've heard before, but she is something of a legend among sailors. She has steered her ship through storms and dreams. The cat's chiefest claw, aloof, avicorously cold determined, enforces the peace on the Isle of Cats, rarely seen in London, but it's not unheard of. Or the pirate poet, a clay woman, etched in innumerable tattooed lines of verse. I think I'm going to start with the cat's chiefest claw, our pal Isari. You find Isari reclining amongst red silks and sticks of incense in one of the more decadent honey dens on Hollow Street. They are surrounded by a flurry of fussing attendants, one of whom plucks at Isari's perfect eyebrows as Isari sips a cup of green tea. Upon catching sight of you, the sharp angles of their face shift ambiguously. Thin, jewelled hands wave away the surrounding lackeys. How may I help you? Isari asks. Let's warn him about the Icarian Cup. The King's Claw travelled all the way from the Isle of Cats to take part in the Icarian Cup. Unfortunately, their time was wasted. The cat's chiefest claw is still as you speak, their face impassive as marble. When you finish outlining the Commodore's plot, there is a momentary flash of fury in their eyes, but it's snuffed as quickly as it comes. A shame, says Isari, clicking their tongue. I had looked forward to my victory. They stand, clapping for their attendance. The incense is packed away, the mint tea rapidly gulped, a coat is shrugged into. A token of gratitude, says Isari, pressing something into your palm. If you chance upon the Commodore again, assure him he has earned my enmity. With that, Isari sweeps from the room. Awesome. Let's chase rumours at the docks next. Difficulty isn't getting sailors and dock was to talk about the cup, it's separating baseless speculation from truth. At a rum-soaked table in the blind helmsman, an equally rum-soaked sailor assures you that Jack of Smiles is a competitor and plans to murder the opposition. A dock worker opines that Mr. Fires will be taking part in his dirigible. Finally, you stumble upon a more likely story. A bartender claims she was heading home from a late shift when she saw a captain overseeing as their ship was given a fresh lick of paint. The captain, unaware they were being watched, took a golden coin from their pocket and held it up to the gaslight. It's a slim lead, but a lead nonetheless. The bartender gives you a name, then hurries away to serve another customer. Let's go for the emulous excursionist. You ask around in Wolfstack docks, but the dockers have only vaguely heard of the excursionist and have no idea where he might be. You have more luck making inquiries at a coffee house in Vale Garden. A bohemian with towering hair and half-moon spectacles directs you to a particularly bourgeoisie bookshop on Ladybones Road, where the excursionist is busy hosting a book signing. Bring a mirror, she advises languidly. It may be the only way to catch his attention. Wonderful. The excursionist is a handsome gentleman with a truly resplendent moustache. He is holding court in the bookshop, surrounded by leather-bound copies of his own work, recounting the time he summited Mount Palmerston. The assembled bookworms gasp at appropriate moments. Once the story is finished, the crowd queue for autographs. You wait at the back. Once the bookshop has almost emptied, you approach the excursionist, who is flexing his writing hand and attempting to maintain his smile. Let's warn him. He should know that the Icarian Cup is a trap. The winner will end up in the clutches of the Admiralty. The excursionist glares up at you, mustache bristling. I know a cheap ploy when I hear one, my lady, he says. Who put you up to this? That irritating sailor woman? The one with the boot? Your protest falls on deaf ears. Not one more word, he says, scribbling his signature onto a book and thrusting it into your hands. Tell whoever sent you that I am not to be dissuaded so easily. You leave the bookshop, having acquired a volume of the excursionist's latest True Adventures to Quicken the Pulse of the Dead, boasts the front cover. A flip through reveals the prose insipid, but the deeds described are, if true, impressive. Okay, well, let's just chase letters again, I guess. Let's do the Anatid Seafarer. Not a name you've heard before, but she's something of a legend. Tracking her down proves shockingly simple. The first docker you ask instantly knows who you mean. We're lucky she's not out to sea, he says, resting against a bollard and wiping his brow. She doesn't spend much time at port, as a rule. When she ain't on her ship, she'll be in a pub. The Blind Helmsman is a place to start. As you turn to leave, the docker catches you by the arm. Word to the wise, he says. She ain't an easy one to understand. Even her crew can't follow what she's saying half the time. Just smile and nod, is my advice. Oh no. You find her sitting at the blind helmsman, surrounded by raucous, roaring sailors. One enormous leather boot is on the table. She holds a tankard of ale aloft. With her free hand, she flips a coin in the air and catches it. She's in the middle of recounting some incomprehensible Z-story. Chomped the gold off half and half. After of swips. Oh no. She's saying, grinning savagely. So I'm rubbing the green, just having the flat foot, ooze down like a main tack. Let's warn her. You hate to interrupt her story, but she should know the cup is a trap and the winner will be kidnapped before they reach the finish line. As you begin to talk, she turns upon you with a furious glare. Can't you see I'm swinging me lamp? She demands, interrupting you. You hesitate for a moment, wondering what she could possibly mean. Telling a story, clarifies someone helpfully. Sweeping your eye across the crowd of sailors who have gone silent and dangerous, you realize you have no idea who just spoke. Down here, says the same muffled voice. The voice is emanating from the leather boot that the seafarer is resting on the pub table. Ever seen a talking boot before, landlubber? Asks the seafarer. Shove your warnings up your gas pipes. Did that beachcomber excursionist put you up to this bushwhacking? Shove off before I write my name across yours. One of the surrounding sailors produces a razor from his pocket and pretends to shave his chin. Another grins at you, revealing teeth filed into points. A fight here would achieve nothing. You leave the pub, your warning unheeded. Let's find the last one, and then I'm going to have to end this episode, but I'm loving this. Here's some rumors again, and the Pirate Poet. The Pirate Poet is delivering a thumping performance on the docks. A haunting verse booms over the heads of an enraptured audience of sailors and stevedores. Hurled coins dance and glimmer at her feet. When she has delivered the final lines of Masterless Puppet, the crowd begins to drift away. She turns her piercing gaze to you. What do you want? Let's warn her. He displays no surprise. I had already decided I would not take part, she says. Something didn't seem right. Come, we should warn the other captains who have been invited. The Pirate Poet knows 3 other captains who have received an Icarian groat, each a saltier sea dog than the last. You accompany her as she pays each a visit. One aboard their moored ship, one in a dingy pub, one in a boarding house. She warns each of them not to take part in the cup. They listen to her without question. That is as many of the invited captains as I know of, says the Pirate Poet finally. There may be others I've missed. Please don't rest until you've found them all. I fear for anyone who fall for the Admiralty's tricks. I don't quite think this is the Admiralty, you know. I think that's everyone. So now all that's left is to return to the Admiral, but I think we will do that in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.